Good afternoon. My name is Yuko from Tsuda University. I'm also serving as a Vice President of International Federation for Information Processing, IFIP. So I present our research work as well as the introduction of Domain Committee of IFIP. The need for IT in disaster risk reduction and our trials. As you see in this kind of events, usually we see disaster managers here, but rather than, I can't see my colleagues in computer science and information systems here. So that's our motivation to promote this area to disaster managers, as well as we want to promote our area to the IT people who could be more interested in this application area of disaster risk management. So what happened? 6 years ago, now I'm working for Tsuda University, which is a women's university in Tokyo. I graduated from there a long time ago. And up until then, last March, I used to work for Iwate Prefectural University, where when they had this earthquake and tsunami. So what happened in one of the institute in the Fishing Technical Center near here, around here, which is the middle of this disaster area 6 years ago. So the institute was attacked by tsunami like this, and then office is something like this. Many of you are working for, our company or university, and you definitely have a PC, I presume. And they have a lot of PCs. They are all soaked in salt water. Can their data back? No. But some of them, yes, because this is a technical center. They have a pure water. They washed, and some data came back, but mostly no. The finding is, do you know the traditional USB memory with a cap? They are saved. Nearly 99% saved. So it's good. And yes. So my talk is something like what happened in findings and support required the disaster, because we have the disaster area in terms of IT and support organization, some results from my experience, and we just found there was a research and development area on IT in disaster risk reduction, which I want to introduce here. Then we introduce our small project on this area, in this area. So damaged, many of you know, but in the Tohoku region, it's almost the top of this main island of Japan. And in Iwate Prefecture here, there's around 1/3 of this, so less than 5,000 people missing. Well, missing people are almost really dead, actually. But they found out, well, nowadays the number of missing is decreased, but the number of deaths increased. Anyway, so injured, so something like this. And was that the first time for them to have? No, actually. Once 30 or 40 years, they have a big tsunami, the same region. Why they suffered? In old days, people lived together, 3 generations or something, so wisdom passed by. The message was passed by generation. Now, they live independently. You see? So they lost the path of information passing from generation to generation. That's why we had the same thing. So our motivation is, well, technology has been advanced. How could we make use of it? Yes, that's our motivation. So what had happened? No communication was available, wireless, some with temporary base station, limited telephone access, but because the number of network users they have a non-limited packet switched nodes. But in future, there is some restriction too if the number of population of network user increased. So there is a heavy problem of limited electricity. Battery charging was a problem. So without electricity, how can you make use of your smartphone and all that? A disaster. That's a big problem, actually. So support of Iwate, 6 years ago, we used to locate, I was located in somewhere here. And from here to here, it takes probably 2.5 hours by car, you see? There is not so much public transport in this area. And from here to here, 3 hours. So if you go and come back, you almost spend 1 day. So what we did was actually we provided the PCs and internet access to the shelters so that the doctors in each shelter can communicate with the people in Morioka, the capital of Iwate. So that sort of thing we did. So our the students who graduated Iwate Prefectural University provided a program so that the people can see the safety information on the mobile phone and all that. So we are in Iwate Prefectural University acting as a coordinator because many organizations, companies, and people in Tokyo, they try to provide the PC, printers, and internet engineers, you see? So, but they don't know where they have to go to help. So we asked where they should go to the emergency response headquarters in Morioka, in Iwate Prefecture, as well as a volunteer center. There was a big volunteer center in Tono near the disaster area. So we collected the needs, and we just get solutions. So we just coordinate them, kind of matchmaker. So this is one of the case studies in a shelter. This is a student from Keio University in Tokyo, or in Kanagawa. They came and helped us our networking. Networking at emergency, like a disaster or shelter, is loosely done, so that in 1 month or in 2 months, they will be removed easily. So that's how to do this in a disaster. So findings. So IT support was needed, definitely. For the information, need a standard format exchange information like safety information sufferers, shelter information for shelter management, and there is a need for this open source software to manage this sort of disaster management. But there is none at the time for the local officers to use our information system to deal with the shelter management, disaster management, all that. So we need it far advanced. There was a Sahana. Why we couldn't make it to use it? Because almost they were in English, the version was different, and there are so many problems. So we have to do that before the disaster. And need a well-known interface. You know what? For our officers in the local government in Japan, they love Excel. So Excel was needed as an output. And for killer application, at that time, most of the data was on a paper, you see. But they have to be online, and probably you can't store everything in one server. Nowadays, there are the cloud services. So this important information should be located in cloud computing and all that. So what is needed is you need to solve the problem speedy. So speed, rhythm. Rhythm is something like this. You have a problem, but if you talk, you know that everyone, many people, you find out the solution. You come up with solution. That I call it rhythm. And there is a need for trust because various people trying to solve the same problem, but there was some problems. So we need a trust. How many minutes? 5, okay. So mine is 6, okay. So what I call disaster communication is very important. Risk communication is something like a risk in advance, in future. But disaster communication is disaster happened now. So you have to communicate with the people. So the problem with disaster communications we need to solve. And the nature of disaster communication is what? Heterogeneous people. Heterogeneity of people is something like people from volunteer, people are individual working, and people from civil, local government. They are very different. And some people came from company, they behave differently. So there are a lot of people with a different background and different purposes. So most of us are novice. That means, well, we have doctors, and they are very special in one area. But most people are dealing with something which is totally different from their normal work, like how you distribute food and all that, and that has not been done usually by civil servants and all that. And fatigue, yes, only me, even me, I used to sleep only 2 hours in April because it's so, and many people didn't have enough time to sleep, so they have a fatigue, and so travel distance to go, and a few hours to sleep without weekend. So there is a big problem of fatigue. And you have to deal with something to solve a problem with a different kind of people whom you have never met. So that sort of stress you have for disaster communications and need for decision making and that sort of thing. Okay? So we need this sort of disaster IT solution for disaster management. When I talk about this communication problem or disaster communication problem, and one of the our notable popular conference in Hawaii in January, that is HICS, Hawaiian International Conference on System Sciences. Then I met one Mulay Tarov. I didn't know him at the time, but now I know. And he was an expert in this area. And I talked, without knowing, he was a Malay. I talked about my findings, and he said, oh, we've been doing for decades on this. So that I knew I came into this area of research. So this is one of his books. The original figure was produced by Guy Witz of European Commission or something. And so this is a lot. So this is what happened. And in 1 week or something, there is our term immediate response. And about 3 months, it's a sustained response and recovery and all that. So when I talk about the disaster communication, we talk about this until yellow, this response time we needed, really, the disaster communication at that time. So ICT environment will be moving. Firstly, we are asked to management of shelters, but then after 3 months, they move to temporary housing. And after 2 years, they move to reconstruction, more, stable place to live in. But it's interestingly, we visit many times in temporary housing to help. But elderly people are very happy here. Why? Because there is, that each compartment of the temporary housing was not so good condition. So that the people will get together in a one, communication room, a common room. Whereas here, people are very happy with individual room. So they don't see each other. So probably a suicide rate and all that alcoholic or something problem they have here. Whereas the place is perfect. 1 more minute. So we have some project for interviewing people, and I just skipped. and we have some recovery watchers. So we are creating this system, the information sharing, and I need to introduce the IFIP approach because I'm a vice president. This is under UNESCO, an organization of umbrella, and computer science or information processing society in each country are member of this organization. And we created, there is a technical committees of IT, and I created 2 years ago IFIP domain committee on IT in risk, disaster risk reduction. So we wanted to promote this area of research to IT people as well as to promote the IT research for the risk managers. So we have some people from ISCRAM. ISCRAM is another committee of our information systems for crisis management, crisis risk management. But we need more, okay. We need more people from United Nations, so that's why I'm here. So I'm a chair and the others. So I hope you will enjoy our third conference next year in Poland. If you are interested in, give me email. Thank you very much.